The day I turned 18, my parents threw me out of our house with nothing but a backpack and $50. "You're a disappointment," my father had sneered, watching me stumble down our perfectly manicured driveway. No daughter of mine would choose art over medical school. My mother stood behind him, arms crossed, her expensive tennis bracelet catching the morning sun. "We've given you everything, Sarah, and this is how you repay us, by throwing away your future." Everything they'd given me came with strings attached. The piano lessons I'd loved were just for college applications. The art supplies I treasured were only allowed because they thought it would look good on my resume. Even my volunteer work at the local animal shelter had to stop because it wasn't prestigious enough. I remember standing at the end of our driveway, watching the massive iron gates close behind me. The home I'd grown up in, with its marble columns and manicured gardens, suddenly felt like a prison I was finally escaping. But freedom at 18, with no money and no plan, was terrifying. That's when Aunt Isabella stepped in. I didn't know she'd been watching that day. Didn't know she'd seen everything from her sleek black Mercedes parked down the street. Aunt Isabella, my father's older sister, had always been the black sheep of the family. While my father chose to be a surgeon for the prestige and money, she'd built her technology empire from scratch. "Get in," she'd said, pulling up beside me. I'd always loved my Aunt Isabella. She was everything my parents weren't: warm, genuine, and more interested in who I was than what I could become. In her fitted blazer and Christian Louboutin heels, she looked every bit the CEO she was, but her eyes were kind. "They're wrong about you, Sarah," she said as we drove away. "Art isn't just about painting pretty pictures. It's about seeing the world differently. That's what makes great innovators." That day changed everything. Aunt Isabella didn't just give me a place to stay, she gave me a future. Her penthouse became my home, her guidance my compass. While my parents told everyone I'd run away to avoid responsibility, Aunt Isabella helped me apply to art school. She saw what they couldn't, that my artistic vision could revolutionize user interface design. For 5 years, I thrived. Graduated top of my class. Started working at Isabella's company, Montgomery Tech, designing interfaces that would change how people interact with technology. My parents never called, never checked if I was alive. Their silence hurt, but Aunt Isabella's pride healed those wounds. "You're exactly where you're meant to be," she'd tell me, watching me work late into the night on project deadlines. What I didn't know was that she was sick. Terminal cancer, diagnosed 6 months ago. She'd hidden it well, still came to work every day, still mentored me, still fought with the board over innovative directions for the company. The day she died, I lost more than an aunt. I lost the only real parent I ever known. The funeral was exactly as she would have wanted it, elegant but not ostentatious, focused on celebrating life rather than mourning death. I sat in the front row, wearing the black Chanel suit she'd bought me for my first board meeting, trying not to cry as person after person spoke about her brilliance, her kindness, her vision. Then I saw them. My parents walked into the church like they owned it. Mom in her designer morning wear, Dad in his custom-made suit. They hadn't aged well. Money might buy expensive clothes, but it couldn't hide the bitterness etched into their faces. They spotted me immediately, their eyes narrowing with recognition. "Sarah," my mother's voice was honey-sweet poison as she approached. "Darling, we've been so worried." I almost laughed. 5 years of silence, and now they were worried. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steady. Aunt Isabella had taught me how to stay composed under pressure. "She was my sister," my father said stiffly. "Of course we're here. And you, well, it's time to come home, Sarah. This rebellious phase has gone on long enough." Before I could respond, a tall woman in an impeccable suit approached us. "Ms. Montgomery," she said, addressing me. "I'm Victoria Chen, your aunt's personal attorney. The will reading will begin shortly in the private chamber. Would you please follow me?" My parents' expressions shifted instantly. "Will reading?" My father's voice sharpened with interest. "We're her only living relatives. Well, aside from Sarah, but surely." Ms. Chen's face remained professional, but I caught a glint of something like satisfaction in her eyes. "All will be explained shortly. Please follow me." The private chamber felt too small for the tension filling it. My parents sat across from me, trying to look concerned while their eyes kept darting to Ms. Chen's briefcase. I touched the delicate pendant Aunt Isabella had given me on my last birthday, a tiny silver key with the words "Future Unlocked" engraved on it. "Before we begin," Ms. Chen said, "Ms. Sarah, Would you please show me your necklace? My parents looked confused as I removed the necklace. Ms. Chen examined it, nodded, then reached into her briefcase. Now, she said, I'll read the last will and testament of Isabella Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Tech and majority shareholder of Montgomery Industries. What happened next would change everything. I, Isabella Montgomery, being of sound mind, hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. Ms. Chen began reading. The room felt charged with electricity as she continued. To my brother Richard and his wife Margaret. My father leaned forward eagerly. I leave precisely what they gave my beloved niece Sarah 5 years ago, $50, and the chance to walk away. The room exploded. This is outrageous, my father shouted, his face turning purple. I'm her only sibling. Ms. Chen continued as if he hadn't spoken. To my niece, Sarah Montgomery, I leave my entire estate, including but not limited to my controlling shares in Montgomery Tech, valued at $2.8 billion, all properties both domestic and international, my entire investment portfolio, and full ownership of Montgomery Industries. My mother's designer purse hit the floor. That's impossible, she whispered. Furthermore, Ms. Chen pressed on, I hereby name Sarah Montgomery as my successor, effective immediately upon my death, as CEO of Montgomery Tech and president of Montgomery Industries. The key around my neck suddenly felt heavier. This was what Aunt Isabella had been preparing me for all along. Those late nights reviewing company reports, the board meetings she insisted I attend, the business courses she'd encouraged alongside my art degree. It hadn't just been mentorship. It had been training. This is absurd. My father stood up, knocking his chair backward. She's just a stupid girl who draws pictures. She can't run a multi-billion-dollar company. Ms. Chen pulled out another document. Actually, Sarah has been effectively running Montgomery Tech's UI/UX division for the past year, leading to a 40% increase in user satisfaction and a significant rise in stock value. Isabella kept detailed records of Sarah's contributions. My mother switched tactics instantly, her face morphing into concerned motherly worry. Sweetheart, she reached for my hand. I pulled away. This is too much responsibility for someone so young. Let us help you. We're family after all. Family? My voice was quiet but firm. Family doesn't throw their daughter out with $50. Family doesn't abandon their child for following her dreams. Aunt Isabella was my family. Now, Sarah. My father's tone turned threatening. Think carefully about what you're doing. We'll contest this will. You're clearly not mentally prepared for this responsibility. Ms. Chen smiled for the first time. Isabella anticipated this reaction. She pulled out a flash drive. This contains 5 years of documented attempts by both of you to access Isabella's accounts, including fraudulent documents using her signature. She kept everything. She also documented your attempts to bribe board members to vote against Sarah's projects. My parents paled. Additionally, Ms. Chen continued, there's a letter here for Sarah. She handed me an envelope with my name written in Aunt Isabella's elegant handwriting. My darling Sarah, if you're reading this, then everything has happened as I predicted. Your parents have shown their true colors once again. But you, my brilliant girl, are ready for this, more ready than you know. I didn't choose you as my heir because you're my niece. I chose you because in the past 5 years, you've shown every quality a true leader needs. Your artistic vision isn't a weakness, it's your greatest strength. You see possibilities others miss. You understand that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. The key you wear isn't just symbolic. In my private safe, combination is your birthday. You'll find everything you need to know about the company, including some projects I've kept secret from the board. One in particular will change everything. Project Legacy. Your parents never understood that true wealth isn't about money. It's about making a difference in the world. Don't let anyone tell you you're not ready. You've been ready since the day you chose to be true to yourself, even when it costs you everything. All my love, Aunt Isabella. P.S. The safe also contains evidence of your father's involvement in some rather questionable medical practices. Use it if necessary. I folded the letter carefully, feeling strength flow through me. When I looked up, my parents were whispering urgently to each other. Ms. Chen, I said, my voice clear and confident, please have security escort my parents out and prepare papers bearing them from entering any Montgomery Tech property. You ungrateful little. My father started. I'm not done. I cut him off. Also prepare a press release announcing my position as CEO, and set up a board meeting for tomorrow morning. You'll regret this, my mother hissed as security arrived. We're not finished. Actually, we are. I stood channeling every ounce of Aunt Isabella's grace. Oh, and Dad. I'm sure the medical board would be very interested in Project Legacy's findings about your experimental procedures. Their faces went ash white. After they were gone, Ms. Chen smiled. Your aunt would be proud. The board meeting is already scheduled for 9 a.m. The members who worked with you in UI/UX are prepared to support you. That evening, I sat in Aunt Isabella's office, my office now, looking at her photo on the wall. The safe yielded everything she promised: company documents, Project Legacy files, and enough evidence to ensure my parents would never bother me again. 1 year later, Montgomery Tech launched Project Legacy, a revolutionary healthcare ad that would make quality medical care accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. The press called it visionary. The board called it our greatest achievement. My father called his lawyer, but by then, his medical license was already suspended. My mother tried reaching out once when our stock price tripled. I had her number blocked. The key pendant still hangs around my neck, but I don't need it to remind me of who I am anymore. I'm Sarah Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Tech, and like my Aunt Isabella, I believe in using power to make a difference, not to make others feel powerless. Sometimes, late at night working in my office, I swear I can feel Aunt Isabella's presence, smiling at the designs scattered across my desk. Designs that will shape the future. She taught me that success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. As for my parents, last I heard, they'd moved to a smaller house in the suburbs. Turns out, living beyond your means catches up with you eventually, but I don't think about them much anymore. I'm too busy building the legacy Aunt Isabella always knew I could create. The stupid girl who draws pictures. She just changed the world. I sat at the elegant dining table in my parents' home, watching my sister Diana hold court like she always did. Her wine glass waved dangerously as she gestured, telling yet another story about her latest business triumph. The acquisition was worth $50 million, she announced, preening under our parents' adoring gazes. Sterling Tech is now the fastest growing software company in the state. My name is Mira Patel, and I've spent the last 5 years being the family disappointment. At least that's what they think I am. And what about you, Mira? Diana turned her attention to me, lips curving in that familiar condescending smile. Still working on that little startup of yours? What was it called again? Shadow something. Shadowbox Digital. I replied quietly, taking a sip of water. No wine for me tonight. I need a clear head for tomorrow's meetings. Right, right. Diana waved her hand dismissively. Doing websites for small businesses, isn't it? How? Quaint. Our mother jumped in, ever the peacekeeper. Not everyone can run a company like Sterling Tech, dear. Mira is doing her best with what she has. If they only knew what Shadowbox Digital really was. Behind the modest website and small downtown office that my family occasionally drove past, my tiny startup was actually one of the most innovative cybersecurity firms in the country. Our client list included government agencies, multinational corporations, and yes, several companies larger than Sterling Tech. But Diana had always been the star. Perfect grades, prestigious MBA, meteoric rise through the tech industry. When she founded Sterling Tech 6 years ago, our parents remortgaged their house to provide her seed funding. They never even asked what I was working on. I read about Sterling's new security platform, our father said proudly. Absolutely revolutionary. Diana, you're changing the entire industry. I bit back a smile, thinking about the security flaws our team had discovered in Sterling's platform just last week. Diana had dismissed our private warning sent through intermediaries, of course. Some tiny consulting firm couldn't possibly understand her sophisticated technology. Speaking of changing the industry, Diana continued, we're announcing a major merger tomorrow. One of the biggest deals in the state's history. She smiled smugly in my direction. But I'm sure you understand the importance of confidentiality agreements, Mira. Oh wait, your little web design company probably doesn't deal with those. My phone buzzed quietly in my lap. A message from my COO. Everything's set for tomorrow. Their board has approved the terms. Should I send the final paperwork to their lawyers? What was that, dear? My mother asked, noticing my distraction. Just a client emergency, I said, Small business websites, you know how it is. Diana laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. Oh, I remember those days. Staying up late, worrying about tiny projects. But that's the difference between us, isn't it? I always aimed higher. I typed a quick response. Send everything. Meeting at 9 a.m. The truth about Shadowbox Digital was known to very few people. On paper, we were a small web development firm. In reality, we were a cybersecurity powerhouse operating through a complex network of shell companies and subsidiaries. Our real headquarters occupied 3 floors of a downtown high-rise, employing over 200 of the best programmers and security experts in the business. More importantly, we had spent the last year quietly acquiring shares in Sterling Tech through various front companies. Diana's revolutionary security platform was built on fundamental flaws that would soon become very public. Her company's value was about to plummet unless someone stepped in to save it. That someone was Shadowbox Digital. Another glass, Diana? Our mother offered, reaching for the wine bottle. Why not? Diana beamed. We should celebrate success when we see it. Speaking of which, Mira, if you ever want some advice on growing your business, I'd be happy to help. Sterling's smallest division probably handles more money than your entire company. I checked my phone again. Our latest valuation had just come in, $2.3 billion. Sterling Tech's entire market cap was less than half that. That's kind of you, I said mildly. Actually, I do have some meetings about expansion tomorrow. Oh. Diana's eyebrows rose with exaggerated interest. Finally moving to a bigger office, maybe hiring a second employee. Our father chuckled. Now, Diana, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you. I thought about the stack of documents waiting in my real office, merger agreements, board approvals, and most satisfyingly, the papers that would make me Diana's boss. By this time tomorrow, Sterling Tech would be a subsidiary of Shadowbox Digital. You're right, I said, standing up. I should probably get home. Big day tomorrow. Diana raised her glass in a mock toast to small victories and modest ambitions. As I drove home, I thought about the moment 5 years ago when I decided to keep Shadowbox's true nature a secret from my family. It was at another dinner, just after Diana had launched Sterling Tech. She had spent the entire evening talking about her vision, her brilliance, her destiny to dominate the industry. I had tried to discuss my own plans for an innovative approach to cybersecurity. Diana had cut me off mid-sentence. Oh, honey, she'd said, patting my hand. Security tech is so complex. Why don't you stick to something simple, like building websites? Know your limitations. So I did exactly what she suggested. On the surface, I created a small web development firm as Shadowbox's public face. I took an office in a modest building, hired a few local developers to maintain the facade, and behind the scenes, I built something far bigger than Diana could imagine. My phone buzzed again as I pulled into my garage. Another message from my COO. Final confirmation from their board. They have no idea who's really buying them. You should see their org chart for the merged company. They have you listed as reporting to Diana. I smiled, thinking of tomorrow's meeting. Diana's face when she realized that her tiny startup sister was about to become her boss would be priceless. Sometimes the best revenge isn't proving people wrong. It's letting them think they're right until the perfect moment to show them just how wrong they've been. The next morning, I stood in my real office, 40 floors above the city. The small web design office my family knew about was visible from here, a perfect metaphor for how they had always underestimated me. Ready? My COO, James, appeared at my door. Sterling's executive team just arrived. They're in the main conference room. I smoothed my designer suit, a far cry from the casual attire I wore to family dinners. Is Diana here yet? Just walked in. You should see her face trying to figure out why the merger meeting is being held at a company she's never heard of. I smiled, picking up my tablet. The last 5 years had been building to this moment. When I entered the conference room, Diana was standing at the window, her back to the door. She turned, recognition and confusion flooding her face. Mira, what are you doing here? This is a private meeting. I walked to the head of the table, setting down my tablet. Actually, I called this meeting. Diana laughed, but it sounded forced. Don't be ridiculous. I'm here to meet with the CEO of Atlas Dynamics. Atlas Dynamics was one of Shadowbox's many shell companies, the one we used to negotiate the merger. Atlas Dynamics is a subsidiary of Shadowbox Digital, I said calmly, nodding to James to start the presentation. My company. The room fell silent. Diana's face went through a rapid series of emotions: confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. That's impossible, she finally managed. Shadowbox is a tiny web design company. You build websites for restaurants. That's our public face, I agreed. But perhaps you should have looked more closely at who's been acquiring Sterling Tech shares over the past year, or who sent you that security audit warning last month, the one you dismissed because it came from a tiny consulting firm. Diana's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the polished floor. No. I clicked through to the first slide, displaying Shadowbox's true organizational structure. Shadowbox Digital is the parent company of 7 technology firms, including Atlas Dynamics. We specialize in advanced cybersecurity solutions, with a current market valuation of $2.3 billion. The Sterling Tech board members were shuffling through their papers, whispering among themselves. Diana remained frozen, staring at the org chart. As of this morning, I continued, we own 51% of Sterling Tech's shares. This meeting isn't to negotiate a merger, it's to announce one. You can't do this, Diana whispered. Actually, I can. Your board has already approved the deal. They were quite eager to accept our offer, especially after we demonstrated the critical security flaws in your new platform. Diana's face flushed red. Those warnings came from you? We tried to tell you privately. You chose not to listen. I turned to address the broader room. Sterling Tech will become a division of Shadowbox Digital. We'll fix the security issues, integrate the salvageable technology, and restructure the management team. Restructure. Diana's voice cracked. I'm the CEO. Not anymore. I slid a document across the table. Your resignation letter is already prepared. Don't worry, your golden parachute is quite generous. The next hour was a blur of signatures, legal requirements, and shocked silence. Diana sat in her chair, seemingly unable to process what was happening. Finally, as the board members filed out, she turned to me. Why, she asked. Why go to all this trouble? Why pretend to be small? I sat on the edge of the conference table. Do you remember 5 years ago when you told me to know my limitations? You, Mom, Dad, you all decided what I was capable of without ever bothering to find out what I was actually doing. So this is revenge. No, I corrected her. This is business. Sterling Tech is a good acquisition for us, despite its flaws. The fact that it happens to be deeply satisfying is just a bonus. My phone buzzed. A message from our mother. Diana just called in tears. What's going on? What have you done? I showed the message to Diana. They still think you're the successful one. Should we go tell them together? The family dinner that night was very different from the previous one. I sat at the same table, but now Diana was the quiet one, pushing food around her plate. I don't understand, our father kept saying. How could Shadowbox be worth billions? You work in that tiny office downtown. That's just for local web design clients, I explained. Our real headquarters is the Hamilton Tower. You can see my office from here. Top 10 floors, north side. Our mother reached for her wine glass with trembling hands. But Diana, Sterling Tech, will be well taken care of as part of Shadowbox, I assured her. Though Diana has chosen to step down as CEO. Stepping down is a polite way to put it, Diana muttered. You could have warned us, our father said accusingly. All these years pretending to run a small business. I raised an eyebrow. Would you have believed me? You never bothered to ask about my work, except to compare it unfavorably to Diana's. The silence that followed was heavy with realization. Years of assumptions, dismissals, and condescension hung in the air between us. Finally, Diana spoke. I underestimated you. We all did. Yes, I agreed. You did. In the months that followed, Sterling Tech was integrated into Shadowbox. The security flaws were fixed, the technology improved, and the company flourished under new management. Diana took a job with a smaller tech firm, hopefully having learned something about humility. Our parents stopped comparing us, though they still struggled to understand how their underachieving daughter built a billion-dollar company right under their noses. As for me, I kept the small web design office downtown. It serves as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving. And that sometimes the best success is the kind no one sees coming. Occasionally, I drive past it on my way to my real office, remembering Diana's words. Such a tiny startup. I smile every time. Because sometimes the best response to being underestimated isn't to prove people wrong. It's to let them keep believing they're right until the perfect moment to show them just how wrong they've been. These days, when people ask about my path to success, I tell them the truth. Sometimes the biggest achievements start with a small facade and a lot of patience. And sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in watching them realize how wrong they've been all along.